Fromsoftware. What can I say that hasn't been said before? They've created some of the best and most iconic games ever made. I mean, sure, they can be pretty difficult, but playing one and expecting otherwise is setting yourself up. Like watching a DSP video and being hyped for him not to make a fool of himself.
I'm done. I'm not redoing it. I'm done. She's gonna heal him. I'm done. I'm done. It's over. It's over. Goodbye. It's over. That's it for Persona 3, ladies and gentlemen.
But you know, as great as their newer stuff is, From's older catalog tends to get overlooked. It's mainly because most of them haven't been re-released since there were so many different publishers, so there's bound to be some rights issues. But also, demand just isn't high enough to warrant dusting most off. Like, who aside from an obsessed wacko like me is gonna want to play this? And it's a real shame because it's adding more to the pile of great games most people likely won't ever play. Which is especially awkward when there's a series with newer entries but you can't check out the older ones easily, like with the Armored Core games. An even bigger shame considering they're awesome. I had heard about Armored Core for a while, but really became interested when the 6th entry, Fires of Rubicon, TM, was announced. And when I prep for a game in a series I haven't checked out yet, I do my damn research. Before it was released, I went and played through most of the original entries to really get a grip on the series. And recently, I was getting a hankering to dive back in. So what better place to start than with the original Armored Core, released all the way back in 1997 for the PlayStation, my 6th favorite video game console of all time, behind the SNES, and PlayStation 3, and Sega Genesis, and the PS2, and the Wii.
Wii?
And you know, really it's PC since I emulate most of my games for better performance, so... Yeah, Fromsoftware had always been early innovators with 3D, since the Kingsfield games, while janky, were still pretty ambitious for the time. And even though by this point they hadn't done anything outside of first-person type games before, they decided to make a third-person action title. But despite all of that, for a PS1 game, this one rules. Armored Core takes place in a dystopian future where an event called the Great Destruction left most of the Earth in ruins, with humans descending below its surface to survive. Now the world is ruled by the megacorporations Murakumo and Chrome, who wage war on each other through various shell companies along with covertly funded terrorist organizations. And because it's the future, said wars are now fought utilizing kick-ass robots called Armored Cores, or ACs for short. One of the many tools at these corporations' disposal are the Ravens, independent AC piloting mercenaries that are down for just about any job. In Armored Core, you'll be taking on the role of one of these Ravens, and accepting work from whoever can foot the bill. According to an interview with some staff members, the concept for the game was the brainchild of producer Yasuyoshi Karasawa. He says in the interview he thought it up around the time Kingsfield 2 was in production. Funny enough, he also says he wasn't thinking of a mech action game at the time of working on Kingsfield 1, although sources say that initially began as a mech game. So what's the deal, Karasawa? You got something to hide? When this game kicks off, we're applying to become a Raven, and it doesn't waste any time getting you right into the action, because there's no tutorial. Instead, you get this message: this is the only test that is given to people who want to become a Raven. You must battle against the opponent AC and survive. If you survive, you will be considered a Raven. That is all. Good luck. And boom, just like that, you're in combat. If you want to know the controls, guess you better have that manual handy. Now, granted, this is at the beginning of the game, so it's no biggie. If you die, you can just start it right back up. To be fair, though, the controls aren't entirely straightforward. See, the original PS1 controller lacked analog sticks, so most games for the system didn't have a free-moving camera. It's why a lot of well-known titles for it, like Metal Gear and Resident Evil, relied on fixed camera perspectives. Well, FromSoft has always been an innovator, and back then, they weren't gonna stand for this limitation. They were gonna give you the full field of view, including the ability to look up and down, with the back buttons. Oh god, I didn't know this was the price I had to pay. The rest of the controls aren't as hard to get a grip on. You look side to side with the left and right buttons on the D-pad and move forward with the other two. Holding the R1 buttons allows you to strafe left or right. X is to boost and fly, square to shoot, and triangle to change weapon. You've also got an energy meter here, which is basically your stamina bar. It determines how long you can fly or boost and also gets drained by energy-based weapons. It only refills when you're not using it up and faster if you're standing still, but that's risky. If it depletes all the way past the red zone, it has to recharge completely, which leaves you very vulnerable. So managing this thing is pretty damn important. The enemies you fight here are simple enough that even with the fuckety camera, you should be able to take them out on at least a second try. They jump around and try and make distance, so the game is already making sure you're gonna have to get a grasp on the movement and weird camera to take them down. I admit they did kick my ass the first time I played because I just never experienced camera movement like this before and could never get them in my sights. This game was really my gateway into the PS1 era, since when I played it, I had only gotten around to a few of the more iconic games on the system. See, I didn't have a console as a kid, and I had no idea what Steam was, so until my mid-teens, the most I could play was shit you could emulate in your browser. It's why I'm a bit behind catching up on some of the classics, but AC here was why I learned how to emulate. I saw footage of this and knew my broke PS1-less ass had to play it. Now, some people may not love these kind of intros, but hey, I say it's best to draw on the fact that the game ain't pulling its punches now, because if you can't get past these guys, this is not the one for you.
The test is over. From this moment on, you are a Raven.
You know, for the time, the voice acting in this game isn't the worst. Sure, there's corny delivery and sometimes they sound totally checked out.
Raven, help me! Monster!
But there weren't any lines that made me laugh out loud like a lot of other games from the time.
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
Hell, I'd say it might sound better than plenty of later released games as well. The Raven's Nest here is our headquarters and where the game really starts proper. You know, instead of around 20 hours in, we get a message from the Nest's operator, the creatively named R. He tells us the deal with the Raven's Nest. It's your in-game hub for everything outside of combat. Here you can read emails that give you some insight into the world, which you can also get from the leaderboard where you can learn about the top-ranked Ravens. But most importantly, this is where you build and customize your mech. Except right now you're flat broke. So it's time to get to work. But hang on, I'm not going on the job looking like this. So right off the bat I gave my Neon Nightmare here an appropriately garish paint job. There's plenty of presets, but the game really lets you get into the nitty-gritty, since you can mess around with the RGB values to give it whatever custom colors you want. There we go, now I'm ready to slaughter some innocents. We're an independent mercenary, so we get all the dirty jobs. Like one of our first two missions where on behalf of the Zam City Guard, we kill some meddlesome striking workers. Because it wouldn't look great if they dealt with these civilians themselves, now would it? But a scumbag bounty hunter? No problem. The missions in Armored Core all revolve around you completing an objective for your employer, which is pretty much always going to involve blowing up robots, so fuck it, I'm down. But it gets deeper than that. For one, when you complete a mission, you aren't paid in full. Instead, you've got to pay for your repairs and ammunition. Yeah, you're boosting around, having fun, and then the game reminds you, hey, you gotta pay your bills. Yay! Immersion. This is here for a couple of reasons. One of them being FromSoft has always rewarded efficient play. You don't hollow in the Souls games unless you die or one of those fucking jars curses you in two. Sekiro has Dragon Rot, Shadow Tower has the barter system, you get the idea. But also, this is a way to limit some of the more powerful weapons. Ammunition is already a factor, but that wouldn't matter as much since you'll likely have shredded whatever you're fighting before you run out of it if you had unmitigated access to every weapon. Having to pay for ammo means you've got to be a little more thoughtful about what missions you're going to bust out that expensive rocket for, so you can't just use it for every little problem. The gameplay itself is fun once you get used to the controls. In fact, I got so used to them I started playing some other games after this and instinctively tried to look up with the triggers. Let's get through the bad stuff first though. As I mentioned, looking up and down is a pain, but thankfully a lot of missions aren't too demanding with it. If your enemies aren't airborne or you're in a more enclosed space, it's not going to come into play as much. The actual aerial movement is also a little finicky. The landing isn't precise and there's momentum, so you're always going to get propelled forward a bit when you touch down. But even worse is you can't look up all the way, so landing jumps or trying to fly to a precise spot is such a pain. The turning speed is also just... Jesus, I'm getting Kingsfield flashbacks. And the camera doesn't deal with walls well and clips through them and into you. And man, if you think handling the camera normally is a pain, imagine doing it mid-air because it deals with ceilings the same way. Even still, I eventually learned to cope with this stuff. I say cope because it was always kind of annoying, but the rest of the controls are easy enough to get down. And pretty fun once you do so. They really manage to convey the weight of your mech well. Your loud metal feet echo everywhere, the slight delay in liftoff. There's a little recovery period when you land from a massive height, and the heft plays a big part in all of your movement. It just goes to making the game feel nice, along with the boosting, which is fun as hell and means you always have a way to speed up even if you're weightier. Because otherwise, can you imagine doing a whole level like this? The controls overall are responsive, and speeding around these big open areas while blasting enemies feels fucking great and encapsulates what I love about this one so much. I'm always taken out of any game that doesn't have some kind of nice hit feedback. If it feels like I'm slapping a toothpick against an unresponsive wall, I get pretty fucking bored. But that isn't the case in this game, far from it. The audio design is solid, each weapon sounds distinctly cool. I also love how little bits fly off enemies whenever you hit them and how they explode into these very PS1 debris. The enemies are simple enough, but are still pretty memorable, although the AI can be very dumb on occasion. Sometimes they just stand there for you and let you kill them, but you know, I can't complain too much if someone's being polite. Although some can stun lock you like these old crab bastards, which can get pretty annoying. Then again, doing this can circumvent that. I love me some high-octane, fast-paced combat. But it still manages to have a bit of depth thanks to the customization, so it sure as hell isn't mindless. The good levels are short and tense. There's no way to restore your armor points in a mission, with one exception in the very final level where they're replenished after a certain point. But with the ones that are paced or balanced right, this isn't a problem. The difficulty is usually pretty reasonable with a few major exceptions, but otherwise I was able to get through most missions on my first try. Not to say the game is easy, but for the most part the challenge is fair. It's really about getting the mechanics down akin to almost any From game. If I did fail, it was usually because the game had a particularly tough encounter or some kind of gimmick. Plenty of missions like the first two are pretty straightforward. You simply have to clear out all of the targets. But they start shaking things up quick. One you'll unlock early on is to protect a truck containing chemical weaponry that's under attack. Now, immediately you're facing way more competent foes than these clunky worker MTs. These guys are more nimble and able machines. It's not too difficult or anything in terms of actually destroying them. It's that with how they move around, a new player is likely gonna have that truck get caught in the crossfire. Or maybe you get unlucky and they blow the fucking thing up. Either way, when you lose a mission, you don't just get to retry. You lose your pay, but you still have those repairs and ammo to take care of. Some missions will give you a shot to redo them after you fail, while others won't. You can even go into debt, which ties into Human Plus, but I'll get to that later. Again, the game isn't pulling its punches, but it does give you some tools to overcome it. By this point, you'll have made enough that you can actually start customizing your mech. And this is where the game gets real fun. Early on, you're going to be strapped for cash, and it can be a bit overwhelming looking at all of these stats, but you can really boil it down to this. If it's similar to what you have and costs more, it's probably going to be better. Your main limitation is the weight and energy system, which prevents you from slapping all the best junk on your AC and just demolishing everything. Your legs determine your weight limit, while your generator determines the energy output and red zone. Legs come in a variety of forms like nimble reverse joints, or tank and quad legs, which let you carry heavier loads. But some heavier legs are too damn thick and make it so you can't equip certain weapons. And good luck trying to slash your sword with tank legs blocking your reach. The other parts include heads with various functions like a large auto map, built-in radars, and energy shielding. There's only 3 cores in this one, which represent the 3 main build types, heavy, middle, and lightweight. A heavier mech will have more AP and can house more expansive loadouts. But the downside is it'll have the movement speed and mobility marry.
The fuck off the street with that thing! You're in the street, it's not a car! That's not a car!
While a lightweight AC can zip around fast as a hummingbird, but a few good shots could be the end of you. Then of course there's middleweight ACs. If you can't guess what that is off the top of your head, you were dropped too much as a kid. Me? I watched too many cartoons. The different cores also have slots for optional parts which can do cool tricks like auto-firing missiles when you lock on, or reducing the drain of energy weapons. Arms have various levels of armor, but the real interesting variation comes from weapon arms, where the arms are straight up replaced with machine guns, missiles, and plasma cannons. Boosters help determine your boost and descent speed. Radars allow you to detect enemies from afar, and firing control lock-on modules serve to determine how many targets you can lock onto, as well as the shape of the lockbox. There is a shit ton of weapons here. Machine guns, snipers, energy weapons, bazookas, laser swords, lots of stuff to try out. Different weapons have different sized lockboxes, and certain heavy weapons can only be fired while standing still or with tank or quad legs equipped, meaning certain powerful weapons may require more skill or manual aim to use. Swords are unique since they're the hardest to get openings for, but they really reward you for it since they also deal a lot of damage. It's all about mixing and matching this wide library of parts, considering these various factors to build and fine-tune your ideal AC. You'll probably have a build you prefer overall, but with the way the game is structured, it tries to encourage you to switch up your AC depending on the situation. Emphasis on tries, but there's examples where it works. Having trouble keeping up with airborne enemies? Lose some weight and go for a lighter build. Fuck, this gal's kicking my ass, she's just too quick to hit with my rifle. Well, equip a homing missile launcher with a wide lockbox and boom. I love robots, especially giant robots who blast and slash each other to scrap. I also love customization in games, getting to really fine-tune a build or playstyle. So Armored Core is pretty much tailor-made for me. Some people have complained you spend too much time in the garage, but I don't mind at all. I love going through and comparing all the parts, having to evaluate what's best for the mission. Plus you get this catchy track going in the background that just gets me into the mech building mood. You have this mission, Exterminate Organisms, where you fight these giant ant robots that have taken over the city, descending through their lair and trying to find the queen to take her down. Now, these are the sort of missions which kinda suck. The ones where it's a maze of corridors or passages you've gotta traverse. A lot of these hallways tend to look the same. Now, heading down is usually the answer, but even still, I got lost a lot in these. Some can have pretty unclear objectives where you gotta stumble about hoping you find whatever you're looking for, but then I found this head part which provided a pretty expansive auto map. While it didn't completely solve the problem, plenty of these missions were a lot less frustrating using this part. Now, to be fair, the customization and how integral it is to the levels isn't as expansive or developed here as it will be later in the series, but it's the first game, so that's to be expected. I didn't feel I had to swap up as much as I did in, say, AC6. If you have a preferred build that's carrying you through, you can likely rely on it for most of the playthrough with a few variations. But there were definitely missions where if I hadn't changed something, I doubt I would have progressed. When those moments do happen, they feel really satisfying, overcoming a tough challenge with this vast toolkit the game gives you. Plus, you can sell back any part you buy at no deficit, so the game is really encouraging you to play around. Just for fun, it was cool to have all the customization. Even if it wasn't required in every instance, I enjoyed challenging myself while experimenting with these many parts. It's a lot like the combat, sometimes it's a little lacking, but man, when it's good, it's good. I also want to mention the aesthetics. The graphics themselves are definitely primitive, but I honestly prefer this to how most games look nowadays. I enjoy graphics and art in general that's stylized, and the more it moves towards realism, the less it interests me. I'd watch a movie if I wanted something to be lifelike. I want to see a cool, unique look I can't get for a walk in my backyard. Sure, they have their issues, but I still enjoy the visuals a lot. The low draw distance means sometimes it can be annoying to spot stuff, although the radar can help with that. And it also creates a cool effect in some of these subterranean areas, where there's this shadowy shroud hanging over them, leaving the enemies hidden away somewhere in that infinite darkness. The environments still have enough detail that they stand out pretty well. It's mainly those endless hallways that come to mind in terms of the lamer segments. I do dig the PS1 look a lot though, and the game's visuals. They're simple, but the aesthetic it conveys is still cool. As much as I love my cyberpunk worlds to be neon-drenched, I appreciate how there's a sort of grittiness to this one. A lot of these areas are dark, barren, eerily empty, and ruinous. It's appropriate because many of these are the remnants of the past being repurposed by the corporations. When we do get more high-tech stuff, it's in the underground. It's interesting how these subterranean cities aren't that advanced. Everything is fairly contemporary. It shows that humanity has been stagnating down here. All they've really developed is new ways to kill each other. But hey, those mechs do look pretty awesome though, so Kinda worth it. They were designed by Shoji Kawamori, who's done work for Gundam, Patlabor, and Macross, and you can see that same style here. His mechs lean less towards the super robots of Nagai and Ishikawa in terms of style. His are more in line with realistic military-type machines that still have some personality to them. It's a look that works great for the setting, and there's a nice aesthetic cohesion between the parts while still allowing them to stand out on their own. The ACs feel even more like characters considering we don't see any people in-game aside for like a second in this cutscene near the end. The amount of restraint it must have taken for a Japanese mech game not to include busty pilots is fucking insane. But it's not a huge loss. Those PS1 tits were so perky they'd gouge your eyes out. The last thing I want to touch on before getting back to the stages is the music. This was the 90s, when techno had just hit the scene. Now, I love Japanese music, and when they got a hold of this shit, they understood how to do it right. Who gives a fuck I'm slaughtering innocent people on some of these missions? I got to do it while listening to this. Man, there's so many good tracks in this one. Integrity has a kind of somber opening with this piano here. Makes me feel a bit bittersweet as I mow down my foes. Circulation would have to be my favorite though. You start with all these cool synthesized vocals that give me Metroid vibes. Before this awesome full techno kicks in that hypes you up as it steadily builds, while the background notes give me this sense of desperation. It even made going through this almost bearable. Some levels don't have music, such as the ones where you're in a hallway, which, might have made it a bit more exciting. Exterminate organisms is far from my favorite mission, but having this little tune going in the background made traversing these tunnels less dull. But then you have a mission like this, where it's just... Sometimes the lack of music works fine, provided they throw in some ambience. In Destroy Plus Escapee, you're on a high-rise building, with only the shrill wind between you and your opponent. The soundtrack is bumping. It's one of my favorite game scores of the 90s. If I have one hope for any of the future AC games, it's to bring this style of music back. We don't get enough of it in modern games. Then again, I don't get a lot of things from most modern games. Like fun. As the game goes on, it does a good job of throwing a variety of challenges at you. One mission has these hovering guys which disable your radar, testing your manual firing ability. In another, you've got to eliminate this drone before it gets to the bottom floor of a chrome compound.
Do you read me, Raven? Hitting a generator could cause an explosion, so please be careful.
Oh, okay, so we're handling it prison style. Got it. The missions are also tied well into the narrative that builds steadily in the background. There's even little subplots that play out across some, which are really neat. Chrome has a drone called Chaos they hire you to fight over 2 missions so they can collect combat data.
The test MT you'll fight is completely automated. There's no need to be timid. Give it all you've got.
Okay then.
We got some excellent data. We'll put it to good use in the future.
Yeah, the data is to not have it stand there while I kill it. Maybe give it a submachine gun too, just a thought. Round 2, eh? Oh yeah, real big enhancements there, guys. Yeah, you suck. You're pathetic. Fighting enemy ACs is some of the best the game has to offer. They're closer to equal opponents since they're built from the very same parts as you. Ravens are independent. Sometimes you take a job to destroy something, but another Raven has been hired to defend it. Like Valkyrie, who just...
Fuck!
There's a decent balance between more mindless blasting action and missions with a more involved goal than blowing something up. Now, some of these gimmicks aren't great. As I mentioned, many exploratory levels tend to get pretty tedious. Even worse is the one where there's a poison gas leak constantly eating away at your AC while you've got to find 5 targets to plant bombs on before you die, while these little fellas chip away at your health. Yeah, I didn't love this one, but it still felt exhilarating to complete by the skin of my teeth. The absolute worst missions are any that involve platforming. It's only a few, but looking up and down and trying to land right in this game is fucking... Repulse enemy attack, destroy intruders, kill struggle leader, and any other that involved me having to do this shit are a pain in the ass. Thankfully, with most of them, they at least had the restraint to only have you doing this kind of stuff for the hidden parts. Oh yeah, there's hidden parts, which is nice, since I love Metroidvanias. While some are a letdown, most are more powerful or efficient than anything you can buy in the shop. The most infamous example is the Kurosawa, which you find behind some fuel tanks in Destroy Fuel Depot. It's one heavy piece of equipment and is difficult to wield for certain builds, but it's pretty worth it. It tears through most enemies in a few quick shots, but it's limited to a max of 50, so it's not as viable for longer missions. But the ammo being free is also pretty nice. The other most iconic hidden part is the Moonlight Sword, a weapon first introduced in the Kingsfield games, but you probably recognize it from literally every one of their Souls games. It's pretty awesome, it's just too bad you have to do this shit to get it. Some unique parts are given as rewards for completing missions, such as these legs that have such a low weight limit they're kinda useless. One has you guarding this advanced radar from attackers, but if you want, you can just turn around and take the thing yourself. I love when games let you do things like that. You can't do all the missions in one playthrough, which guarantees you can't get all of the special parts, but it also adds some good replay value. What missions you pick, the order, and whether you succeed determines which missions unlock next, while others will directly lock off another or send you down a particular story route. One mission has you scout a base for Murakumo, while another has you defending that same base from Murakumo's attack on behalf of Chrome. Between this and the customization, it's a pretty varied game. It only took me 22 hours on my first run, and once I had gotten used to the controls and returned for my second playthrough, it only took me 5. So it definitely doesn't wear out its welcome and just packs those hours full of content. Even if you don't like some levels, the game's typically not repeating gimmicks, so you don't have to worry about doing a lot of this crap more than once. As I mentioned, the story of the game really builds in the background. There are no real cutscenes, the most you get is a little cinematic, maybe showing off that this guy you're about to fight is a cut above the rest. And these ones at the very end. You primarily get lore from your emails, which depending on the mission, certain gaps will start to get filled in. For example, if you go 50,000 credits into debt, you are inducted into the Human Plus program, which is run by Murakumo, with the goal of providing enhancements to elite ravens, as well as idiots who go into debt that can be used as test subjects, I guess. Gameplay-wise, it's a cool way to build an easy mode into the game instead of it being a setting at the start. I always give points to games that integrate this kind of stuff naturally through the gameplay. If you continually fail, you can get multiple unique plus upgrades, except I'm not a bitch, so I didn't really use them in this playthrough. But lore-wise, it's pretty interesting as well. You do this mission Recover Capsules, and afterwards you get a message revealing plus technology dates far before the Great Destruction. Little is spelled out, but like the intro, that's Fromsoft tradition. The seeds it does plant are enough for you to start putting some pieces together, which I enjoy doing. It starts becoming more apparent that there's something not right about all of this. There's no real antagonist at first. You're just doing jobs for Chrome, Murakumo, the shell companies, and gangs in between. But as the game goes on, you rise through the ranks and begin to realize that something is not right. One mission, you're sent to scout an underwater facility, but it's a trap. Someone sealed you inside because they want you dead and they had the right idea. You even get to influence the story yourself through what jobs you take. Like I said, some missions are determined by which corp you side with, so you'll get a different semi-final mission depending on if you're going up against Chrome or Murakumo. If you go against Murakumo, then you've got to stop them from using the satellite weapon Justice, which is what drove humanity underground. Easy enough mission all in all, but what is Chrome?
Combat system engaged.
Oh, fuck. Okay, oh, fuck. Oh, shit. God damn it. Look, okay, to be fair, it seems like they put the data to good use because, you know, they're a lot harder now. And, I mean, it's a 3-on-1 fight, not really fair. I mean, look, I'm having a rough day. In terms of which I sided with, I went with Murakumo at first since they seem cooler out of the gate. Chrome, on the other hand, is pretty dickish early on. But then you realize Murakumo is kinda condescending, and they do some of the worst stuff during missions like forcing you to go through a self-destruct sequence multiple times. In the Chrome route, you actually come to earn their respect. It feels more legit. Well, as legit as it can be from a scumball corporation that grind up your baby for an extra coin. The penultimate missions are the same either way. Both corps are failing, and you've got to go through this compound wiping out the remnants of Chrome. It ends with you fighting this giant mech who's cool, but goes down pretty easy all things considered, because obviously this is a fake out. The next mission requests you go back through the base and make sure there's no loose ends. Now, immediately back when I played this, there was a kind of dread hanging over this entire mission, because you're going through this eerily empty base, and even though it seems abandoned, you know something is waiting for you.
Raven, there seems to be nothing else here. That's enough. Please return.
Sure enough, it's another trap.
You are still alive? But we will end that now. Don't you understand? You are totally out of line. You are going overboard.
Name of AC. Sledgehammer.
Now, as opposed to that big hunk of junk from earlier, Sledgehammer here is actually a decent fight. He's one of the tougher ACs in the lineup. Even with the Kurosawa and Moonlight, he's pretty quick and has a variety of attacks he can throw at you. This also isn't his first attempt on your life depending on what missions you did, since he's also the one who lured you to the subaquatic facility. Just one of many cool details I only picked up on a second playthrough. You already have the enemies from before wearing you down too, so this guy's probably gonna take you a few tries. But the fight is a bit cheap in one regard. You don't die in most missions if you fail, but if you forgot to save before this one, congrats, you get a legit game over. To be fair though, they save it for the more story-relevant missions near the end, like these. Because, yeah, I don't think this guy's exactly gonna let you try again. I did overcome him though, and it felt great. Except, if you know anything about this game, you know that's a cakewalk compared to the real ending. Because, yeah, it's a triple fake out. The final mission is called Clear Floating Mines. Apparently someone filled the Raven's Nest with them. Now they want to send you in to deal with them and whatever enemies are lurking about. Like with the last mission, you know this isn't going to be straightforward. It's pretty clear whoever wants you dead by this point is operating out of the nest. And now we're going straight into whatever they've got waiting for us. But hey, I've come this far, might as well. The first part of the mission is simple. You've just got to wipe out these 2 rooms worth of tough enemies. I didn't even have to clear out any mines actually now that I think about it, since the pretense that you're actually here for a job is all but gone now. The mission is kind enough to replenish your health past this section, and you're gonna need it. Now, up to this point, I've been pretty positive. The game's got its flaws, sure, but overall conveys the feeling I want from a mech power fantasy. Yes, some missions suck, but you can usually play around them. Plus, after having gone through this game a total of 3 times, most don't get on my nerves as much as they used to. But there is one thing that makes me dread replaying this game, or at least reaching this point. It's similar to Mega Man 7 if you've ever played that game. It's pretty great the whole way through, barring some minor bumps in the road. But then the devs decided, you know what? Let's make the ending utterly fucking suck. Although instead of the final boss, it's what comes before here that's the real nightmare. This large vertical room with big floating cubes moving about and enemies thrown on some for good measure is pain. You've got to scale these, with your camera that can barely look up and imprecise landing, while trying not to bump into the bottom of one so said camera doesn't have a fucking stroke, and while these turrets try and knock you off. It's really the combination of all of this that makes it such a bitch to complete. Everything else in the game I got kind of accustomed to, or at least learned to deal with it in an effective way. But not everything can be fixed like this because sometimes it's just jank and not a finely tuned challenge. There's difficulty and then there's this bullshit. But eventually, like everything else, I got through.
Resistance is futile.
Whatever's going on here, we're getting closer to the truth of it. But our mysterious enemy isn't done yet. They've got one more trick up their sleeve. If you've played this game, you know exactly who I'm talking about.
Name of AC. 9-ball.
The top-ranked Raven himself is here to make sure we go no further. Hustler 1, pilot of the AC 9-ball. Well, he certainly fucking earned that position because, Christ, this is easily the toughest fight in the entire game. To the point where it's really an optional one. To beat the game, you only have to get past him. Except you're in a mostly vertical space where it's harder to keep track of him and make distance. He does not suffer from that issue in the slightest when it comes to you, though. See, I may have dissed Human Plus earlier, but 9-ball here is the recipient of quite a few enhancements from that program. And you know, I'm starting to see the merits of it. Fighting 9-ball here is a lot like fighting Snake Plissken. as Ricky Berwick. Oh, but make no mistake, running by him is still an ordeal, because there's actually 2 of these guys. Yeah, you go down this cool cyber shaft and then have to dodge the second 9-ball going up one. Now, I was tempted to try and take this guy down, really prove my place as the top-ranked Raven, but then I was reminded that when you die you have to redo the whole cube part again, so... yeah, just gonna sneak past you there.
Come no closer.
The thing that's been addressing us is this weird CPU core. When you destroy it, we get a few revelations. This AI computer is at the heart of the Raven's Nest. That, and it was controlling the 2 9-balls. Now, it's not spelled out in this game, but it might be a while till I get to Master of Arena, the second follow-up to this title, which does delve more into this part of the lore. So, instead of leaving you in suspense, I'll spoil it a bit. This control computer is behind everything. The creation of the corporations, the Ravens, the assassination attempts on us, and even the ACs. Now, why was it doing this? Well, simple. We threatened the status quo. This machine was tasked with preserving humanity after they nearly destroyed themselves during the Great Destruction. The way it accomplishes this is by ensuring they'll never gain that kind of power again through keeping them in constant conflict. And then you came along and just had to fuck up the balance by being too damn good. You know, it's interesting because while it's definitely not morally right, I can understand why it would have done this. It seems like the kind of solution a logic-driven machine would arrive at. If humanity is continuously destroying themselves, then it might seem like a better idea to keep them weakened in that state to prevent the entire Earth getting wiped out. Again, there was no real Hustler 1, just an AI-controlled shell, and R was likely another extension of this consciousness as well. It really made me question how many of those emails were sent by actual humans. I love twists akin to this that, when done right, completely shake up the status quo. It makes the whole setting so much more interesting, because now you look back at everything in a different context. When you beat the game, the fate of our lead and the world is left ambiguous. But one thing is for sure, the current age is over, but a new era is coming. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Armored Core. Well, not quite. Once you beat the game, you unlock all the missions you skipped or didn't get on your route. So now you can go back, experience them, and grab any hidden parts you may have missed. It's a lot of fun revisiting some of these earlier missions with your overpowered equipment and just seeing how far you've come in that regard. And now I had found the holy trinity of hidden parts. In the mission Retake Air Cleaner, you can get the WX-S800GF, a badass shoulder-mounted dual missile launcher. And with this and the Kurosawa, going through the missions I had missed was basically activating God mode, except if God mode racked up a lot of debt. After doing everything else, I decided I wasn't gonna leave the video off having bitched out fighting 9-ball. Now, the trick is to try and lure him into one of these corridors, but it's hard to get him in the hole. But even if you do, dodging the AoE on his bazooka is intense. See, I think the issue is 9-ball here doesn't have his badass theme from Master of Arena yet. So, let's fix that. Come on, you son of a bitch. Just, come on, come on, come on. That's it, get in there. Just get in the hole. Come down, please, please. Oh, there we go. All right, come on. Oh, fuck. No.
What is your wish?
Oh, I beat him. Cool. So anyway, Armored Core, yeah. It's, pretty fucking good. FromSoft was knocking it out of the park from the beginning. Part of the reason is that you can tell these guys actually respect games as art. They weren't just chasing trends. Sure, there were other games with mech customization, but nothing quite like this at the time. It means that even some of their more flawed titles always have something you can appreciate in them. With this one, though, there's more good than bad present by far. And even shitty-ass levels where you're wandering about get less painful once you've gone through them once or twice and know where everything is. What you can't get past is the awful camera, but at least it's only awful in certain scenarios. And when it comes down to it, the only part of the game I really truly despise is this floating cube hell. As I said, when the game's good, it's good. Your mech feels so fun to control, provided you're not trying to do anything too precise in the air. And then reality has to creep in, and you've got to pay your bills. The customization isn't the deepest. Again, whatever's the most expensive is typically the best. And yet, it's still fun to try out this vast arsenal at your disposal. And it makes those moments where you solve a problem by switching up your build feel even better to overcome. The visuals can be an acquired taste, but I enjoy them. And even more so the excellent soundtrack, which I was listening to while editing this. Sure, it all could have been better, but I still love what we got, flaws and all. Especially for a first entry in a series and with hardware the studio still wasn't super familiar with. The story is also interesting. Not super deep or anything, but surprisingly expansive for a game with no real cutscenes and this mission structure. Plus, it's got a moral I can get down with. Don't put AI in charge of your shit.